Hi there, graders. I hope you all are having a great week so far. I am going to go through week 6 packet for the math section. So week 6 math section, and we're really just going to go through days 1 through 3. Now, many of these lessons that we are going to go through can be also reviewed through Zern. These are also lessons that we reviewed right before we left school. So back in March, we went through these. So these are actually still somewhat of a review. Now, many of us had a harder time with these future lessons. So I just want to preface that by saying we're going to go through it. I'm just going to walk you through and talk you through it. Now, you may or may not see me writing on my screen. So if you still need help and you still don't understand what I'm talking about, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out. So what you're going to see for our first day, so I'm going to highlight it. Excuse me, I just had to sneeze. I'm so sorry. I'm just still struggling with allergies. So our warm-up is going to have you guys actually review how to do a bar graph. This is a bar graph. So you have to look at the data in this table where it says number of students in each class. They gave you the numbers, and then you have to color in to make a bar graph. So where it says baking and they said 9, you can see they already did it where the baking is labeled. They colored it up to where it would be 9 because 9 is in between 8 and 10. So you need to go ahead and color whatever colors you want. The number 16 for sports, 13 for chorus, and 18 for drama. Now our new learning is about number bonds and still partitioning a line, a fraction line. And so I want you guys to be able to use the number line and to use the number bonds. So it says to draw a number bond for each fractional unit. Partition the fraction strip to show the unit fractions of the number bond. Use the fraction strip to help you label the fractions on the number line. Be sure to label the fractions at 0 and 1. So you can see this little word thirds. So we're talking about thirds from 0 to 1. So that means you have to have 3 equal parts. I really need you guys to be paying attention to these word bubbles that they have. And the reason why is because it's really walking you through the thinking. It says, the fractional unit is thirds. The number bond shows that 3 copies of 1/3 make 1 whole, which is true because 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 equals 1 whole. Then it says, I partitioned the fraction strip, the rectangle above the number line, into 3 equal parts and labeled each part 1/3. The 3 copies of 1/3 on my fraction strip match the 3 copies of 1/3 shown by my number bond. So once again, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 equals 1 whole. My number line and fraction strip are the same length. So I used the partitions on my fraction strip to help me know where to make tick marks on my number line. Then I counted thirds from left to right and labeled how many thirds I counted at each tick mark. And they started at 0/3, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. This example is exactly what you will be doing today. Here's another example of something else you might see. The question says, a rope is 1 meter long. Mr. Lee makes a knot every 1/4 meter. The first knot is at 1/4 meter. The last knot is at 1 meter. Draw and label a number line from 0 meters to 1 meter to show where Mr. Lee makes knots. Label all the fractions, including 0/4 and 4/4. Label 0 meters and 1 meter too. So Mr. Lee makes knots every 1/4 meter, so his rope must be partitioned into 4 equal parts. Notice how the 1/4 gave us a hint that we are breaking it apart into fourths. it says, I can draw a number line to represent Mr. Lee's rope and then partition it into 4 equal parts. I can count by fourths from left to right, starting at 0 or 0/4, and label them at each tick mark: 0/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, or 1 meter. So I would like for you guys to go ahead and you're going to, when you get to these problems, reference back to those 2 examples. The instructions are going to be basically the same. So I would like for you guys to really practice for problem 1, how to break this apart into halves and labeling your fraction strip and number line in halves. Problem 2, notice how it says see new learning example 2. So go back, check the example, the new learning example 2, to show you exactly what to do for problem 2. The problem set, once again, reference back to the new learning problem 1. This is going to show you that you need to draw a number bond, which they already have the 1 hole set for you for each fractional unit. You're going to partition the fraction strip to show the unit fraction of the number bond. So for B, it'll be thirds. So you will partition the fraction strip and the number line into thirds, 3 equal parts. Use the fraction strip to help you label the fractions on the number line, and then be sure to label the fractions at 0 and 1. So for thirds in our number bond, you need to have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. There should be 3 little spider legs that come out with each of them saying 1/3. Now, when you get to questions 2 and 3, this is where you can reference back to example problem 2 from our new learning about 2 or 3 pages prior. Number 2 says, Trevor needs to let his puppy outside every quarter or 1/4 hour to potty train him. Draw and label a number line from 0 hours to 1 hour to show every 1/4 hour. Include 0/4 and 4/4 hour. Label 0 hours and 1 hour too. So you're going to do a lot of labeling, but really what I want to see is I want to see you draw that number line. I want to see you break it apart into 4 equal parts, and I want to see the fractions labeled correctly, and then also that you label it as 0 hours and 1 hour. So in your number line, I should see 0/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 or 4/4 labeled on your number line. Number 3 says, Miss Metcalf wants to share $1 equally among 5 students. Draw a number bond and a number line to help explain your answer. So part A says, what fraction of a dollar will each student get? So if you go from 0 to 1 and you have 5 students, you will be breaking it apart into fifths. So you are able to label that number bond and number line in fifths. Now here is where you might be able to think a little bit outside of the box. You can also just say, if you know your cents and your dollars and everything, you can ask your parents to try to help you figure out how much actual money they will get. So if we were to multiply blank times 5, what gives us 100 cents? So how much money will each student get? So, but I also want to challenge you to just think about it as a fraction. All right. So once again, how much money will each student get? Now, when you go to day 2, so when you worked on this, it might have been Tuesday, it might have been Thursday, last week, whatever day it is you're working on, notice how it's changing the lesson. You're going one lesson further. It's now lesson 15, week 6, day 2. They're warming you up by looking at a bar graph again. The following questions will be based on the bar graph. Now, these are data. This is data stuff. We actually never went through these things. We are going to go through it together towards the end of the year. These are really fun. I love working with bar graphs. Now, these are our bar graphs. This is actually exactly what you guys would have filled in the previous day. It says, what is the value of each square in the bar graph, which means how much does one square equal? And now you can figure that out by looking at the numbers on the side. What do you notice? What are they counting by? If you said they're skip counting by twos, that shows you that each square is 2, is a value of 2. Write a number sentence to find how many total students are enrolled in classes. And what that means is you can write a number sentence to find the total by doing an addition problem. So you can take each of the values of baking, sports, chorus, and drama, and you can add them up together. And so your number sentence might say 9 plus 16 plus 13 plus 18 equals, and you need to figure it out. Now, how many fewer students are in sports than in chorus and baking combined? Write a number sentence to show your thinking. So this is a comparison. So you're actually going to do 2 steps. First, you need to add up chorus and baking. You need to add up chorus and baking. That would mean you would need to add 13 plus 9. Then you need to figure out how many are in sports. Sports is 16. We can see that it hits right at the 16 mark. So once you figure out what chorus and baking their total, so 13 plus 9, which is 22, you are then going to do 22, which is chorus and baking, minus 16, and that's going to tell you how many fewer students are in sports. That is a subtraction. So that would be your number sentence. Now, that's just to warm up our brains with adding and subtracting. You guys can do that. I know you can. Now, I once again wanted to stress, when you're looking at these new lessons, it says it's new learning. Pay attention to the word bubble or the little speech bubbles. Pay attention to the examples that they're talking about, because that's exactly what you'll be doing in the following pages. If you need additional help, I recommend going to Zern. Zern will give you hands-on experience by looking at these videos and having to manipulate the problems. We're still in lesson 15. The example says, estimate to label the given fraction on the number line. Be sure to label the fractions as 0 and 1 and write the fractions above the number line. Draw a number bond to match your number line. So the example or the fraction that they're asking you to plot on the number line is 5/6. So we know, based on that denominator or the bottom number, that there are going to be 6 equal parts. So I know there are 6 equal parts in the whole. So I can estimate to partition this number line into 6 equal parts. Then I can label the fractions as 0 and 1 as 0, 6, and 6, 6. I can also count up to 5, 6, starting at 1, 6. I can touch and count 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, and 5, 6, and plot and label the fraction above the number line. You then can draw a 2-part number bond of one whole, with one part labeled 5, 6, and the other part labeled as 1, 6. This number bond shows the fraction I plotted and the other part of the number line. So now this number bond part might be a little confusing. I want you to pay attention. They were showing you the one whole. Now one part of that whole was 5, 6. So if we plot 5, 6, how many more 6 do we need to get to? Or how many more 6 do we need in order to get to 6, 6? So 5, 6 plus 1, 6 equals 6, 6, or one whole. So it's a 2-part number bond. So instead of drawing 6 spider legs, all filled with 1/6. They wanted to make it a little easier and show you that 5/6 plus 1/6 equals 1 whole. Now, here's your example. I want you guys, when you're working through this, look at the example above. Notice how they took 2/3 plus 1/3 to equal 1 whole. So 2 plus 1 is 3, so 3/3, right? So how many equal parts are we splitting this number line into? 3 equal parts. Go ahead and plot 2/3 on the number line. Now, your new learning example 2 is going to also now look at breaking apart a number line into equal parts. Read the directions carefully. These are normally going to be more about word problems and really figuring out the questions that they're asking. For example, it said Claire made 6 equal spaced knots on her ribbon as shown. Starting at the first knot and ending at the last knot, how many equal parts are formed by the 6 knots? Label each fraction at the knot. Now, there are 5 equal parts because it wouldn't be 6. It would not be 6 because we label it 0 and we label this as 1. So notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 equal parts. I know that I need to count the number of equal parts, not the number of knots. Pay attention to that. Claire made. Even though Claire made 6 knots, there are 5 equal parts. Okay? So, for example 2, they are asking you to basically do the same thing we just saw above. Read the directions carefully. How many equal parts are formed by the 5 knots? If you answered for this question or example 2 that there are 4 equal spaces, you are correct that we're talking about fourths. Now, for your problem set, you are going to be partitioning the number lines, labeling the fraction at 0 and 1, and then writing the fraction above the number line. It does ask you to draw a number bond to match your line. So for example, our first fraction is 3/4. That means you are going to partition. Let's see if I can mark up our, I'm going to try my best to mark up our file. Okay. It does not seem that it's letting me. Okay, here we go. So we know we're going to do fourths. So you should split this apart into fourths. I like to draw my middle line first. Okay. Now I have 4 equal spots. Now it says to label the fractions as 0 and 1. So we know that this is 0 fourths. I need to get rid of that one. 0 fourths. And this would be 4 fourths. Okay. Now, we know we're going to plot 3/4. So if this is 0/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So right here, we would do 3/4. Okay. So then we can actually make a number bond where we have 1 whole. Okay. And we are going to draw a leg right here and draw another leg because we're only do 2 parts. And we know that one of our parts is going to be 3/4. Okay, we know one of them is going to be 3/4. Okay, now if our other circle needs to equal 1 whole, how many fourths do I need to add to it? It would be 1/4. So 3/4 plus 1/4 will give you 4/4 or 1 whole. Okay, that's what you will do for the rest of those problems. Partition the number line, then place each fraction on the number line. You guys can do it. And now we're at day 3. Now day 3 is lesson 16 from module 5. Once again, they're going to warm your brains up with some graphing. And it says the tally chart shows a survey of students' favorite pets. Each tally mark represents one student. So you are going to count each tally mark. Now, just know whenever you see one that's a strike in between 4, that means that it's a bundle of 5. So we can just say that is 5, 6. You see that? So I could count all these individually, but that might take forever. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. You normally strike it when it's 5 and make it a bundle. So it's 5, 6 for that cat top section. Turtles is 4, fish is 2, dogs is 5, 6, 7, 8. So dogs is 8, and lizards is 2. Now, it's asking you, the chart shows a total of how many students. So how many students voted? I want you to think about that and add up all of those numbers and then to write your total. Then you're going to use the tally chart to complete the picture graph below. The first one has been done for you. So instead of using tally marks, they're now using circles. So you would make a circle for each tally mark that was up here. So for turtles, for example, there are 4 kids that voted for turtles. So that means you would do 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. Now, then you need to answer using the data that you have. You are going to then answer these questions. Now, our new learning for lesson 16, module 5, is that you guys are going to be partitioning and labeling fractions that are maybe bigger than just one whole. There might be more than just one whole. So, for example, right here it's asking you to estimate, to equally partition and label the fractions on the number line. Label the whole numbers as fractions and box them. So we did this all together back in class in March. So this might be, we might have forgotten some of this, but I know you guys can do it. It says that the first word right here is fourths, which means we broke it apart into fourths. In earlier practice, the end point on the number line was 0. Here, it starts at 1. The arrows on the number line tell me that there are more numbers, but it just doesn't show them. I can still partition the number line into fourths. I know there are 4 fourths in 1, so I can label 4 fourths above the 1. Then I can count on by fourths and label the fractions until I get to 3. So we go 4 fourths, 5 fourths, 6 fourths, 7 fourths, 8 fourths. Now they put a box around it because it's a whole number. 9 fourths, 10 fourths, 11 fourths, 12 fourths. They put a box around 12 fourths because it was at a whole number. I see that 8 fourths is at the same point as 2. That means 8 fourths and 2 are equivalent. That means equal. It's the same with 12 fourths and 3. I can box these numbers to show the whole numbers as fractions. So I would like for you guys to go ahead and try the examples that they gave you for example 1. They even have a question here for you to think about. How many thirds are in one whole? So how many thirds are between 1 and 2? Think about it. Now, your second part of your new learning is your example 2. It's asking you to draw a number line with the endpoints 4 and 6. Label the whole numbers Estimate to partition each interval into 6 and label them. Box the fractions that are located at the same points as whole numbers. So it says I can first draw a number line with the endpoints 4 and 6. I see that 5 is missing from the number line, so I need to mark and label 5 at the point halfway between 4 and 6. After labeling the whole numbers, I can partition each interval into 6 equal lengths. This is very important to pay attention to, ladies and gentlemen, because we cannot forget about that whole number of 5. All right, the whole number 5, you can't just go from 4 to 6 without remembering about our whole number 5. So it goes 4, 5, 6, and there needs to be 6 equal parts in between each. Then it says this number starts at 4. I need to figure out how many 6 are equivalent to 4. I know 6 copies of 1 6 makes 1, so 12 copies of 1 6 makes 2. 18 copies makes 3. So they're skip counting here. They're going 6, 12, 18, and then the next one would be 24 copies makes 4. I notice a pattern. I am skip counting by 6, 6 to get to the next whole number. That means I can also just multiply 4 times 6 to get to 24 6. Now that I know 24 6 is equivalent to 4, I can count on to fill in the rest of my number line. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so important. We talked about this in class. This is where we can skip count by our numbers. That's why we've skip counted all during the school year. And then we can also just think, okay, 4 times 6 equals 24. So it's 24 6. Really pay attention to this word bubble right here, the speech bubble. So then you are going to try your example 2 all on your own. Read the directions, read the steps. The last part of your day 3 for week 6 is to estimate to equally partition and label the fractions on the number line. Label the whole as fractions and box them. So that means your fractions above 2, 3, and 4 should be labeled or boxed. Okay, pay attention to the word in front of the number line because that's what you will be partitioning them into. So for part B, you partition this into fourths. Don't forget about your whole number right here, 3, 4, 5. Then you're going to go to 2 and 3, and both of these are slightly like word problems, all right? So number 2 says partition each whole into thirds, label each fraction, count up as you go, box the fractions that are located at the same points as whole numbers. Then number 3, draw a number line with endpoints 0 and 3. So what numbers come between 0 and 3? 1 and 2. Label the wholes. So it should go 0, 1, 2, 3. Partition each whole into fourths. Label all the fractions from 0, 2, 3. Box the fractions that are located at the same points as whole numbers, and then use a separate paper if you need more space. All right, you guys can do this. These are all things that we did together. You guys can take your time, really read the directions. There's a lot of directions, so just take it one at a time. Okay, so for number 2, for example, I would read this and just do the partitioning each whole into thirds first. Then I would go and label each fraction. Then the last step, I would box the fractions that are located at the same point as whole numbers. Take your time. You guys can do it, and let me know if you need any help. I'm super proud of you, and I miss you all.